Welcome viewers to my YouTube channel. I'm so delighted that you are watching. I'm your host, Teacher Jonathan Musau. Today I want to cover on travel graphs, and specifically where the examiner will ask you about the average speed on a return journey. And I will also cover another type of travel graphs where the examiner requires you to compare the speeds and tell which one the motorist or the whoever was traveling at the highest or lowest speed. So in the whole of this week I will be covering graphs. Don't miss any of these lessons because they are very, very important, especially if you are waiting for an exam in KCPE. Thank you. The graph below represents the journey of a motorist from town Q to town R and back. What was the motorist's average speed for the whole journey? Average speed is given by the formula total distance divided by total time taken. Now, when it is a return journey, that is, we went to R and then went back to Q, you break the journey into two. You move from Q, the bottom, to the top, R, which is 240 kilometers, as you can see here. And then from R now to Q, the line which is going straight down shows going back to Q, another 240 kilometers. So the total distance he covered was 480 kilometers. That is, from Q to R, you move all the way to the top, that is 240 kilometers. Then now again from R to Q, the line which is going down shows now the return journey going back to Q, which is another 240 kilometers. Most candidates forget that. Please remember, if it's a return journey, you get the distance that you see on the top here, and then you add the same distance which represents the distance when he was traveling back. So the total distance is 480 kilometers. Then you divide by the total time. The total time you get it by getting from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Time taken, you take arrival time minus departure, that is 1 p.m. minus 7 a.m. Then you subtract 1300, you convert 1 p.m. to become 1300. Then you subtract 7 a.m. which becomes 6 hours. So 1300 minus 700, which becomes 6 hours. Or you can count the intervals from 7 to 1 p.m. 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1. Those are 6 hours, counting the intervals. So you divide now 480 divided by 6. Candidates, be very keen. When you are told it's a return journey, you must move from Q to R, which is 240 kilometers, and again back to Q, another 240. So 480 divided by the 6 hours we have got, which gives us 80 kilometers per hour. But candidates who will not be keen are likely just to see the 240 kilometers, which is reflected here, divide by 6 hours to get 40 kilometers per hour, which you can see in choice A. It's there to attract candidates who are not keen. Be keen. We move to number 2. Number 2 is a similar question to number 1. The graph beside shows a journey by bus from town X to town Y and back. What was the average speed for the bus for the whole journey? Again, average speed is equal to total distance divided by total time taken. So we move from town X all the way to the top, where it gives us 240 kilometers. And just like we did in the other graph, we move again back from now town Y to town X, another 240 kilometers. So that's why I've written distance from X to Y is 240. Then again from Y to X is another 240. So the total distance is 480 kilometers. Then when we come to total time, we look at the intervals, the time given here from 5 to 7. We know those are 2 hours. So in between 5 and 7 is 6. So the graph starts at 6 a.m. and it ends at 6:30, because it's between 5 and 7. We know it is 6. And you can see the line is between 6 and 7. So between 6 and 7 should be 30. So it is 6:30. So the time, total time taken, we get 6:30, the time he completed the journey, minus the time he started the journey, 6 a.m. So we convert 6:30 p.m. into 24-hour clock, which becomes 18:30. Then we convert 6 a.m. the departure time to be 0600 hours, and then when we subtract 18:30 minus 600 hours, we get 12.5 hours. We can also do the other way manually, where we move from 6 to 7, that's 1 hour, from 7 to 8, then from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and then 6 to 6:30. All that put together will give us 12.5 hours. So to get average speed, we now get the total distance, which is 480 kilometers. We divide by 12.5. We know when we are dividing, we are supposed to change this to improper, and then we reciprocate and we change this sign to be multiplication. So for 480 divided by 12.5 is the same as saying 480 kilometers times 2 over 25. Because 12.5 changed to improper is 25 over 2. When it's reciprocated, it becomes 2 over 25. So 480 times 2 is 960 over 25. When you divide that keenly, you'll get 38.4 kilometers per hour. Again, I repeat by saying, when you're dealing with average speed, remember, when you get the total distance, when you're getting the total distance, when you reach the top, that is only one way from X to Y. You have to move again Y to X. 240 is for X to Y, and then again Y to X, which is another 240 to get 480. That's where candidates make mistakes. Now we move on to number 3. The last question on average speed on a return journey says the graph beside represents a journey from town M to town N and back. So we have to get the average speed. So in this question, we move from M to N to the top, which is 300 kilometers. And as we said, this is only one way. So we return from now N to M, which is another 300 kilometers. So the total distance covered is 600 kilometers. Take note of that. There is from M to N, which is 300, and then when he was going back, he covered another 300. So that takes us to 600 kilometers. Then the total time, I said there are two ways of doing it. You can count the intervals. You move from 7 to 1 p.m. counting the intervals, where you say from 7 to 8, 1 hour, 8 to 9, 2 hours, 9 to 10, 3, 10 to 11, 4, 11 to 12, 5, 12 to 1, 6 hours. Or you subtract time taken by saying it is arrival time minus departure time. So we take 1 p.m. minus 7 a.m. and we change 1 p.m. to become 1300, 24 o'clock system, 7 a.m. to become 0700, then we subtract and get 6 hours. So now to get the average speed, we get the total distance, which you have seen is 300 kilometers from M to N plus 300 kilometers from N to M, and we divide by 6. So 600 kilometers divided by 6, which gives us 100 kilometers per hour. It's my sincere hope that you have fully understood how to find average speed on a return journey. It's upon you now to go to your books, find questions that are asking average speed, and you will not get any of them wrong. Now from the next questions, I want us now to look at questions which are used to compare speeds. But before we do that, I want us to go through this graph here, which has got line A, line B, line C, line D, and line E. One thing you're supposed to know about these lines here, they are showing a certain distance covered within a given time. For example, A shows that 40 kilometers, the person covered 40 kilometers within an hour, because it's from here to here, that's from 7 to 8. So he covered 40 kilometers within an hour. We can say that the speed was 40 kilometers per hour. When we move to the second person, B, the distance is still 40 kilometers. As you can see, the distance is still the same. But the time he took now is from 7 to 9. He took 2 hours. So if I was to get the speed, I would get the distance, which is 40 kilometers, divide by 2 hours and get 20 kilometers per hour. I repeat the first person before we go to the third person. The first person has covered a distance of 40 kilometers, that is line A, within an hour from 7 to 8. So 40 kilometers distance and time of 1 hour, that is a speed of 40 kilometers per hour. The second line B, the person has covered still 40 kilometers, because you can see the distance is still the same, but now the time this person took, B took 2 hours from 7 to 9. So B was at a slower speed because he took 2 hours and the distance was 40. So 40 divided by 2, the speed was 20 kilometers per hour, and A was 40 kilometers per hour. When we move to C, it is still 40 kilometers covered by C, and then the time, let's see the time it took. It moved from 7 to 10, so it is 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and 9 to 10, 3 hours. So you divide 40 by 3. And when you divide 40 by 3, you find that the speed is still slower because it covered like 13 and a third kilometers per hour. This speed was 13 and a third kilometers per hour. When we move to D, the distance is 40 also. He covered a distance of 40 and the time is up to 11. So how much time is this? 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. Those are 4 hours. So 40, which is the distance, divided by 4 hours, that is 10 kilometers per hour. That's a slower speed also. When we go to the last graph, which is E, the distance covered is 40 and the time is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. So it covered, as it was moving at a speed of 8 kilometers per hour. So what do we discover about these people? All of them have moved a distance of 40 kilometers. They are all going to 40 kilometers, but they are traveling at different speeds. And the one who is moving at the highest speed is A, because the 40 kilometers he covered within 1 hour. And that gives us a speed of 40 kilometers per hour. The slowest person was E, because you can see he moved 40 kilometers, but these 40 kilometers he covered within 5 hours. So the speed was 8 kilometers per hour, because you divide 40 by 5 and get 8 kilometers per hour. So what can we learn from this graph, even without calculation? By looking at these graphs, we can tell who is moving faster and who is moving slower. So when you look at A, it's a very steep slope. It's a very steep slope, which shows that the 40 kilometers was covered within a short time. So the steeper the slope, the higher the speed. The gentle the slope, like in E, you can see has also covered 40 kilometers, but within a lot of time. So the gentle the slope, the slower the speed, or the lower the speed. So by looking at a graph, we can tell who is moving at a high speed even without calculation. So when you look at these lines here, if you asked who was traveling at the highest speed, you just look at the one who has a steep slope, and the steep slope is at A, who was moving at a higher speed. If I ask you who was traveling at the slowest speed, you just look at the most gentle slope, and it is E. That was the one who was traveling at the slowest speed. So as we move to number 4, the fourth question, this is mostly what the questions will be asking: who was traveling at the highest speed and who was traveling at the lowest speed. Thank you. Now welcome back to number 4, where we are looking at the first question, where we are supposed to compare speeds. And we are told the graph beside represents a journey by a cyclist from city P to city Q, between which times was the average speed lowest. Underline the word lowest. And I will be using 2 methods to explain these questions. The first method is the one I've just explained earlier, where we are just going to look at the slopes. And just to repeat what I've said earlier, the steeper the slope, the higher the speed. The gentler the slope, the lower the speed. So we look at which of these slopes, the 3 slopes given here, which one is the most gentle. Ile imelala kabisa. That is the one that is traveling at the lowest speed. So looking at the first slope here, the second slope and the third slope, you can easily tell this slope is the most gentle, and that gives you the lowest speed. So it was between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. was the time that he was traveling at the lowest speed. If they were asking the opposite, where he was traveling at the highest speed, of course we would pick the center one. You can see the center one is the most steep, because you can see it has traveled a long distance within a very short time. That's why this graph is very steep. But in this question we are looking at the lowest speed, so we look at the most gentle slope, and the gentle slope here is between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Method 2, I'm just about to explain it shortly. Now in method 2 we use calculation, and I will start with choice A, which is saying 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. There were choices. The first choice was giving 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. So I want to calculate what is the speed between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. In short, the first slope given here. So I take the distance that he covered from 2 to 7, and I see here for distance it's 60 kilometers, as I've written here, and that was covered within a time of, I start from here, that is from 2 to 7. 2 to 7 is 5 hours. 2 to 7, I count the intervals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 60 kilometers was covered within 5 hours. So the speed is distance over time, which is same as 60 over 5, which is 12 kilometers per hour. We go to B, choice B, which says 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. is this line here, and 11 a.m. is up to here. So it is talking about this slope here, the first slope here, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So I want to get the distance. So the slope starts at 220, between 240 to 220, and then the slope ends at 140. So 220 minus 140 is 80 kilometers, sorry. And then the time, again I check from where the slope starts, 9 a.m. to 11, those are 2 hours. So 9 to 10, 10 to 11. So this slope lies within 2 hours. So the distance is 140 kilometers. 220 minus 140, which is 80 kilometers, and the time is 2 hours. Just repeat again. Between 9 a.m., 9 starts here and 11 is here. So this slope is the one we are talking about. So the distance for this slope starts at 220 and the slope ends at 140. So you subtract the two distances, 220 minus 140, which gives you 80 kilometers. The time is from where the slope starts at 9 and it ends at 11. So between 9 and 11 there are 2 hours. So the speed there will be 80 kilometers divided by 2 hours, which is 40 kilometers per hour. It is higher than A. We move to C. 12 noon. 12 noon is here to 1 p.m. This is the slope we are talking about, this slope here. So the distance is starting at 140 and the slope ends at 60. So 140 minus 60 is 80 kilometers. Then the slope's time, it starts at 12 noon and ends at 1 p.m. The slope ends here. So that is 1 hour. So when we get the calculation there, we get the distance. Speed is distance over time, and the distance there, the distance is 80. The time taken is 1 hour, which is 80 kilometers per hour. It is the highest so far. Then we move to choice D, which talks of 12 noon. Where is 12 noon? 12 noon is here up to 7 p.m. This is combining the two slopes. 12 noon to 7 p.m. is up to here. So this is talking of two slopes put together. So I start with 12 noon. It's showing 140 kilometers and the slope ends at 0. So this is the total distance is 140 kilometers. Then the total time from 12 noon to 7 p.m. we start counting from 12 noon, from where the slope have started. 12 noon here, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. We count all those hours. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are 7 hours. Then we divide the distance, 140 kilometers divided by 7 hours. We get 20 kilometers per hour. Now we look at the question. the question was asking which one was the lowest speed, and the lowest speed, we have 12 kilometers per hour, 40 kilometers per hour, 80 kilometers per hour, and 20 kilometers per hour. So the first slope, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. This one here is the lowest speed, just as we got in method 1 by looking at the gentle slope. The gentle slope means low speed. Steep slope means high speed. You can see the answer for this slope is the highest, 80 kilometers per hour. So we just look at the slope, which one is very gentle. So we have got the lowest speed was 12 kilometers per hour, which is represented by the time from slope of 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you. Now, number 6, still on comparing speeds. The graph beside shows the journey made by a social worker on a certain day, between which two places was his speed the highest. So in this case, we are looking for the highest speed. And in method 1, we are supposed to look at the steepest slope, the one which is very steep. The steeper the slope, the higher the speed. So looking at the first slope compared to the second slope, the third slope, and the fourth slope, you can easily tell this is the most steep slope. This one is the one which is almost vertical. So this slope gives us now the highest speed. That is from school to health center. From school to health center is the most steep slope, which gives us the highest slope, which gives us the highest speed. As we go to calculation in method 2, we shall still find the answer to be school to health center. Now, in method 2 of the same question we have just tackled, where we are supposed to calculate, we are going to start with choice A, which says home and school. The first slope here. We calculate, we get the distance, we divide by the time, we see what the speed is, and we do the rest, the same to the rest of the choices, and then we compare which one is the highest, the lowest speed. So we start from home to school. The distance is between 2 and 4, which is 3 kilometers. That is 3 kilometers. Then the time, you can see from 7 to this here, that is 30 minutes, then up to 8, that's an hour. And this hour is within 10 boxes. So the 10 small square represent an hour, which is 60 minutes. So 60 minutes are represented by 10 squares. You divide 60 by 10 to get one small square represents 6 minutes. So if I go counting each small box, I'll count 6, 12, 18, 24, then 30. You can see I'm in between 7 and 8, which is supposed to be 7:30. Then from 7:30, I count again 6 minutes, I go to 36, then 42. That's where the first slope ends. The first slope ends at 42 minutes. So it took 42 minutes. We have to convert 42 minutes to be hours by dividing 42 by 60, which becomes 7/10. So now to get the speed, we get the distance, which you got 3 kilometers. We divide by the time, which you have got 7/10. And 3 divided by 7/10 means 3 times 10/7, which is same as 30/7, which is same as 4 and 2/7 kilometers per hour. So note that the first speed was 2 and 4/2/7 kilometers per hour. When we move to the second slope, school and health center. School starts at 3 kilometers. Health center is at 7 kilometers. 7 minus 3 is 4. So the person covered 4 kilometers. Now to get the time, we start at school, which starts at 8. Health center is at 8:30, in between 8 and 9. So that's a half an hour. So distance is 4 kilometers, time is half an hour. Speed will be distance divided by time, which is 4, divided by half, which is 4 times 2/1, which is 8 kilometers per hour. So it is higher than the first speed. We move to the third choice, health center and market. Health center is 9 a.m. and ends at 10 a.m. That's 1 hour. What about the distance? It starts at 7 kilometers and ends at 2 kilometers. 7 minus 2 is 5 kilometers. So we have got the distance is 5 kilometers, the time is 1 hour. easy to calculate the speed, which is distance over time, 5 over 1, which is 5 kilometers per hour. The last one is distance, market to home and home. Market is 2 kilometers, home is 0 kilometers. So that tells you that the person covered 2 kilometers. The time is 1 hour from 10 to 11. So we divide 2 by 1 to get 2 kilometers per hour. Looking at the answers we have got, the first one we got 4 and 2 over 7 kilometers per hour, 8 kilometers per hour, 5 kilometers per hour, and 2 kilometers per hour. The highest speed is supposed to be the one which is showing 8 kilometers per hour, which is school and health center. This one, just as we got in method 1, where we just looked at the steepest slope. So we get the same answer, that this is the highest speed, because if you compare the speeds, it has the highest speed. I hope you are getting that. Now the last question on comparing speeds, I want us just to use method 1 because this one was very easy to identify. They are asking, the graph beside shows a school advisor's journey from school W to P through schools L, K and M. Between which two schools was she traveling at the highest speed? So I said the steeper the slope, the higher the speed. The gentler the slope, the lower the speed. So looking at these 4 slopes, you can easily tell which one is the most steep. And it is K and M. And if you do calculation, you find this is the most steep slope and it's the one giving the highest speed. And if you were to get the lowest, it would be MP. MP, the one which is very gentle, is the lowest speed. So this one, the highest speed was between K and M, looking at the most steep slope. So thank you for watching and for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and maybe drop your comment. Thank you.